Hey everyone, it's Pete Calandra here, and on today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how I integrate an iOS device into my live setup using a Yamaha CP73. If you want to skip my opening talk here, this video is timestamped and you can just go right ahead to the demonstration. But I'd like to put some context to what I'm doing. So for those of you that don't know, I spent 35 to 40 years of my life as an incredibly busy New York City musician. And I'm old right now. You know, I started in my very early 20s, and I was playing on Broadway in many hit shows. I did some studio work. I did a lot of live gigs. I played everywhere from CBGB's, The Bottom Line, Carnegie Hall with the New York Pops Orchestra. I was in the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra for a summer. So I was a very big live player. And for the most part, I didn't really need to worry about my live setup. Every show I played in had a live setup there, and I just had to learn how to use it. And when I played live gigs and I needed a keyboard, I gigged with a DX7 in mid to late 1980s and through the 90s. Things have changed since then. I stopped gigging about 7 or 8 years ago. I was really tired of it. I literally, if I told you that I did 7,000 or 8,000 gigs over that time period, I wouldn't be exaggerating. You know, theater has 8 shows a week, 52 weeks a year, so that's 416 performances. And when I was in Little Shop of Horrors from 1982 to 1987, there were years where I only took off like 8 or 7, maybe even less than that shows a week. So there were years where I was doing over 400 gigs just at Little Shop. The year that I was in the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra, that I did the summer show there. So for 13 weeks, we did 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, and I was taking a leave of absence from the Little Shop. So that year, I probably did close to 450 gigs. It was just insane amount of work. And then as I got busy as a media composer, I was working less playing shows, and that number dropped down quite a bit, but I was still gigging a lot. But, you know, towards the late 2010s, I kind of got sick of it and I stopped, and I continued on with just my media music writing and my college teaching. Well, over the pandemic, I started doing live streams, and then I got the itch to start playing live again, and I hooked up with a local band here in the Hudson Valley. And it's a cover band, a 7-piece band with 2 horn players, rhythm section, and a vocalist. And I had, when I started playing with them, I needed basically very basic things. I needed organ, acoustic piano, Rhodes, Wurlitzer, clavinet, some brass, and that was about it. And I was taking 2 keyboards with me. The Yamaha CP73 is my piano-based instrument, and a YC61 as my organ-based instrument. After the first season of gigging, I got tired of that, even though that's a very light setup, and I wanted to see how I could reduce my load. So I'm a Yamaha artist, so I get artist pricing on these things, and I picked up a YC88. I thought, great. Got organ, pianos, and everything here. And the two things about the YC88, which is a fantastic keyboard, that were not good for me. It weighed about 45 pounds, which is not heavy, but it's heavy for me, right? And the CP weighs like 22 or 23 pounds. Big weight difference. And the other thing is there was one functionality thing that Yamaha knows about that I couldn't get beyond, and that is that on the CP, you can affect the 3 most important parameters of an onboard delay: the wet-dry mix, the delay time, and the amount of feedback, i.e. the number of repeats. And you can do all of that right from the front panel, and you can change it very easily during the performance. It's really hands-on, which I love about the CP. And the YC has a lot of onboard parameter tweaking as well, but it does not have a feedback control for the delay. You're stuck with the number of feedback that Yamaha has set up, and you can't change it. So doing a cover of a song like Superstition, I couldn't get the kind of delay that even kind of approximated what Stevie does with 5 clavinets or something like that on that track. So those two things made it problematic for me. And so I was looking around for ways that I could reduce my load, right? And just have lighter stuff to carry in and out of the gigs, still have a satisfying keyboard to play, because I love the action on the YC88, but I also like the action on the CP73. It's still weighted. It's more like a Fender Rhodes-ish kind of weighted as opposed to a graded Hammond piano action. So all of these Yamaha instruments, the CP, the YC, the MoDX, and the Montage, they all have built-in USB audio interfaces and USB over MIDI, MIDI over USB. So I started bringing my iPad. At first, I was just using the B3X app, which is really fantastic. It's fantastic. And so I set up the CP so that I had one patch for just the organ, and I'd have it going from my iPad, and zero latency or no noticeable latency. Fantastic sound. But then I started thinking, there are some sounds on the CP that aren't so great, and what could I do to sort of emulate the function of MainStage, right? Because I could just bring a laptop and use MainStage, but I have issues with the kinds of gigs that I do and bringing a laptop around. And one issue is that we do a lot of outdoor, late afternoon, early evening, summer gigs, and sometimes we're not covered. And computer, baking in the sun, or having to bring something to cover the computer that's like more stuff to bring. And the other thing is that I don't trust that the computer battery would last for 4 sets, right? So then I'd have to bring a big wall wart and a power cable. So those things turned me off. And also my computer is very expensive, my laptop, and it's my mobile recording rig. I take it when I'm out of the studio, I take it with me. I don't have to touch my Mac Studio, right? I don't have to do any of that stuff. And I don't want to mess it up on a gig and have it fall or anything like that. iPad, very portable. The battery can last for an entire gig. So I started looking into what I could do to emulate MainStage, and you can't really. There's not really, that I know of anyway, an app that's as full-featured as MainStage. I mean, MainStage is used by everybody. I went to see Toto last week because my friend Ken is mixing, and I posted a video of that. And Dennis Atlas, I think his name is, he's using a full MainStage rig, and it's very, very, very sophisticated programming, great sounds and everything. I don't need that, right? I have almost everything I need in the CP. I just need organ. I needed better strings, and I needed a couple of synth leads, right? And then I had in my iPad a couple of additional sounds that I also would like to access, such as the Ivory Piano and the Scarbee EP88S, both of which are used as part of Korg's Module Pro. So what I settled in on was using AUM as sort of like as you would use MainStage, and instead of changing patches per song or something like that, I set up each audio channel, and I think I'm using 8 or 9 audio channels to be a different patch. So the B3X is on channel 1. Then I've got in module the Ivory Piano, and then I've got the Scarbee Rhodes, and I've got some orchestral strings from one of the expansion modules from one of the expansion packs, I guess it is, from Module Pro. So, and then I'm using the iSEM to do my analog synth leads. I've got a couple of those. And so, there are a lot of apps that work within AUM. Most of the Korg Gadget synth emulations, which are very good, can be used inside of AUM. The Moog iOS apps, there's the Model 15 and the Mini Moog Model D. They work, but for some reason, when I set up this thing where each channel had its own separate, received on its own separate MIDI channel on AUM, and each patch on the CP73 transmitted a unique MIDI channel, every time I opened up a new session, I'd have to reload the Moog in. It wouldn't remember. So I just bagged that. I'll have to look and research and see what I'm doing wrong. Anyway, I go through all this stuff, show you how I do it. My needs are meager, but you could really do quite a bit because, and I talk about it during the presentation of how you could expand it and be even more sophisticated with it, far beyond what my needs are. And I'm also using, I couldn't remember when I was doing the demo, the Kymatica reverb on several of the patches. It's an inexpensive and pretty good sounding reverb. For iOS, it's great for my live gigs. Sounds fantastic as an adjunct reverb for the organ and the electric piano. And I'm using a few other plugins as well, which I talk about during the demo. Anyway, this is long-winded. Like I said, you could have jumped ahead. But if you've made it this far, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe. And to be notified, ring that bell. What are your setups? Do anybody else use an iPad as part of their setup? The Yamaha stuff is very easy to set up and use. Sounds great. I never have any problems with latency or the audio choking. And iPad can last for a 4-set gig if you turn down the brightness of the monitor to about 50%. So anyway, I've been Pete Calandra once again. Thank you so much for watching, and let's get right into it. Okay, so I don't have a huge need for sounds. So I'll just go through the sounds I need that I can get on board the CP73, and then I'll show you how I use the iPad as an adjunct. So the first thing I need is a kind of a funky Rhodes. And it's got a tremolo, not an auto pan, and I can change that very easily on the front panel. Right, very easy. I love that. And then if I want to make it auto pan, I can do that as well. So now you should. There we go. There we go. That's a bit too much, but it just shows you what's possible. Or if I want to do a touch wah. And the same thing with the chorus and all that stuff. So anyway, that works out really well. The next thing is a driven clavinet with a delay on it, which works very well for a song like this. Right, and I know that Stevie does it in E flat. I can do it that way too. But the band I play in plays it in E, guitar, right? Think guitar. Anyway, there's that. But then if I need something for Dr. John, right place, right time. Less echo, just as a preset. So I can just go right back between those two. They're right next to each other. Then down here, I've got my natural CFX. Beautiful. I've got a Wurlitzer. Also, again, can play around with the tremolo. That's what I love about the CP, the immediacy of changing your sound right on the spot. There's very little menu diving for performance features. Then right here, I've got a big brass section, and I'm layering a sax section and a sforzando brass. And there are other YouTube channels where you can see how to do that. It's in the more advanced functions, and it's very easy to set up. But this would be for Stevie Wonder tunes, right? Sir Duke and whatever. I don't really tend to double the brass section very much with synth brass or sampled brass, but there are a couple of songs where I think it's appropriate, and that's one of the songs. And then my last one is just a simple, clean Rhodes. Now, I didn't go over the first patch in this live set, and if I click on that, Beautiful B3, all drawbars out. So what is that? So let's go to the iPad. Now, I've got the iPad set up with a USB-C to I think it's USB-B. I bought this special cable. If you're using an older iPad, you need the camera connection kit, which has lightning to USB, just a regular USB-A to B cable. But they make these now with USB-C to USB-C to USB-B. That's a mouthful. I'll put a link for that in the description box below. I'm not affiliated, but that's just for your own edification. Okay, so I've got AUM open, which is a beautiful app. And while there's no such thing as main stage for iPad, for my purposes, this works very well. It gives me the extra few sounds and variations of sounds I have on here that I would like to use at different times during the gig. So the first thing is we've got the IK Hammond B3X, and I've got it set up like this. Now, I've got right here, I use those little boxes there as though they were the reverse keys on a full-size organ. So my first preset is this. This is what I usually open up with. So it's the first 3 drawbars full, and then the very last one full. And then if I want to go to the Jimmy Smith thing, I would turn on the brake and hit the percussion. And the expression pedal only works with things on the iPad. Got that set up as well. All right, so a couple of presets. So this is the first drawbars, first 4 drawbars out. Mod wheel controls the Leslie. Again, the full. And then I've got a few other little setups here, like this one here works really well with right. This is a nice one also. And you could get into sort of a Garth Hudson thing, right? Not that I'm playing like him, but he uses the pitch bend lever on his Lowry organ and gets those bent sounds. And when I'm in the moment playing, I can conjure up things that sort of evoke that a little bit. And it's great to have that option. So I've got the B3 now covered, much better than any other B3 in any keyboard anywhere from my perspective, unless you're getting either the Viscount or the Suzuki Hammond clones. But this is fantastic software. And I have it in AUM. I can adjust the overall loudness right here because I've got plenty of room on the fader. And I've got it going through this little reverb plugin. It's called Space, and I'll put a link in the description box. I forget who makes this, but it was very, very reasonable, and it's got a very nice sound to it. Okay, so on my next patch over here, I've got Ampy Funk, right? So this is a reprise of that Rhodes in the first slot. And what I use this for is we do a medley of Slippin' Into Darkness into the Deodato version of 2001, right? And the Slippin' Into Darkness is in B minor. That's the key that Lisa Fischer did it, and that's the version that we're doing. And then even though the Deodato 2001 is in C minor, we've transposed it down to B minor. So I can start off with, right? And then when it comes to boo-da beep ba doo ba, and then right into and there's just a little bit more echo. This is a copy of that Funky Rhodes from the first live set, but I've added a little bit of echo in here so that when I'm soloing, or if I want to do this kind of stuff that Deodato does, which is fantastic. Then this is a spot where I do double the brass because it's a large studio brass section with strings, right? So if I click here, I get this sound. And we go back here. We click here. I'm in module, and I'm using one of the KA Pro symphonic ensembles. And I'm using that as an expansion pack for module because it's really sounds great. It's better than the strings that come on board the CP. So now if I turn off the brass, you can hear the strings. And the expression pedal controls them as well. And they're also velocity sensitive. And what's nice about this is, let me turn the brass back on the last chord, I can slam down on the keyboard and it brings in brass, you know, it's very dramatic. All right, so how am I doing this, right? How am I making the iPad work? Okay, so let's go back to our Hammond patch here. And the first thing we'll do is we'll go over to the iPad, right? And we'll click on those 3 lines right there, and it opens up these destinations here. And if we click here, I've got the CP73 port 1 turned on. And then if we go down to the channel filter, it's only receiving on MIDI channel 2. All right? So that's set up like that. And if we go here on the CP73 and I hit settings, and I scroll down to master keyboard, hit enter. So the mode SW is on. Advanced mode switching is on. And then we go to zone settings, zone 1. Zone 1, it's on. Transmits on channel 2. So this is only receiving on channel 2. So you're only getting this channel strip. I've done an octave shift up. And then I've got my foot controller 2 on. And that's doing volume. Expression. Okay, so let me exit that. And then with the brass and strings, I have the brass, the Sforzando brass from inside the CP. And I could discuss with you how you could get all that happening out of the iPad, but this is internal. It's very snappy. There's no latency at all. And I don't feel any latency with the iPad, which is great. So what I've done is over here on this channel strip right here, I've opened up module. And as I showed you before, I entered the expansion strings. I've got this one set up to receive on MIDI channel 4. And if we go here to settings, this one transmits on MIDI channel 4, and again, transposed up an octave so that the strings are in the same octave as the brass. So, not that difficult to do. Now, what else do I have? Okay, so in the latest operating system for the CP, they've added kind of a CFX2, which is darker, richer, and beautiful. That works well with playing ballads. Next, I've got the CFX2, right, with the same strings that are used on the brass and strings. And I could just bring them in with the expression pedal. It's very nice. Now, there are a couple of things in module that I don't have and that I'd like to access. And then if I go to the next page or the next live set, I've got the BX3, I've got brass and strings. Now I've got here, I've got the Scarbee Rhodes, and that's in here, right, in module. It's fantastic. Little bite, really great. And so how do I have that set up? Okay, Scarbee Rhodes, transmitting, receiving on 5, not 13. And then if we go here, transmitting on 5, and then again transposing so that everything's in the right octave. And that's how we've done that. Ivory Piano, also in module. So that gives me a really nice Steinway sound. Let's bring the volume on that up a little. Over here, MIDI channel 2, I've got a little bit of reverb in on that. Now, I've got a saw lead, and that's on the iSEM. And I've got the same reverb, and I've also got the Mogafoger plug-in there, which is great delay. And then what's cool is that you can play around with the time right here. So hands-on control. So that's one synth lead that I really difficult to get in here. It does have some waveforms. It's not bad, but it's not as good as that. And then this is a SEM lead here. (1970s) anyway. And I've got that here. And these are set up with the same thing. I've got a particular MIDI channel they receive on. And then I haven't played this live yet, but I do have the Geo Shred in here. Shred lead, I can change that to Geo Flute, which is what I should save it at. So if I ever wanted to play that live, and I've got that going through the Eventide Black Hole. So that one I'm playing from the glass. I don't really need to have that set up here. Yeah, and that's pretty much it in terms of what I need and how I've set this up. You could have 16 channels filled with different sounds on your iPad and set up your live sets that way. And let's say you're doing the same set night to night. You could load this one in for the first set, and then you could create a new session for the second set, right? And there's plenty of space on the CP70. They've got plenty of live sets that you could set up quite a few different things. But anyway, I think it makes a really powerful adjunct. And with all this stuff open, this is an iPad Air that I bought last year, and it's got the DSP is only at 31%. And if I bring the luminance of the glass down, the screen down, I don't need any electricity. It works fine. I always bring a charger with me that I can charge between sets, but I've never had any issue with the battery running out. And that's another reason why I prefer this to a laptop. And also it fits on my music rack here, right? The music stand. And then I can have another iPad here with all my sheet music in it. And it fits right there. And it fits in a knapsack. It's very easy and it's very powerful. I hope that you've enjoyed this. and leave any comments or questions down below. It's not that difficult to do, and it really is a great way to expand the CP73 or the CP88, and you could do the same thing with the YC as well, and with the Montage, the Modi X, they all have built-in USB audio interfaces. So Yamaha, very forward thinking, because these have been like this for years. I think they might have been one of the first companies to really do this, and they do it well. Anyway, I've been Pete Calandra. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a cup of coffee down in the description box below. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.